5:30 p.m. on Tuesday, August the 13th, 2024. I call this regular meeting of the Kingsville Independent School District to order. We'll have roll call. Joe Morales.
Here.
Martin Chapa.
Here.
David Garcia.
Here.
Joseph Reese.
Here.
Jacob Pettis. Here. Delma Salinas.
Here.
Brian Kufal is here. Let the record show there is a quorum of board members present and that this meeting has been posted in accordance with Government Code, Chapter 551, the State of Texas Open Meetings Act. We move now to the moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
All right, this meeting is being live video streamed, and we move now to item number 4, which is adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Ruiz, seconded by Mr. Chapa. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries 7-0. Item number 5, public participation. Ms. Pettis, do we have anyone who has signed up to address the board? We move now to item number 6, communication from administration. Item 6A is the superintendent's update. Dr. Pettis.
Good evening, President Kufal and all the members of the board. At this time, we'd like to recognize some very important people on our team, and they are our safety officers. They work so hard all the time to keep us safe in everything that we do. Even just walking down the hallway, we saw them all, we were saying, gosh, we feel even safer just walking through the hallways with all of them here. And we appreciate their dedication. An incident occurred, I guess, a couple of weeks ago or last week where one of our officers was caught saving one of our students' lives, really, because the little toddler actually was in on the street. But things like this happen all the time and we don't see them. And we want you to know that we do understand that you are doing so many things that we don't even see. And so I'm glad that that did come to light. I hate that that happened, because of the little boy, but I am glad that, we are here to recognize you. And I'd like you all just to come up here so we can take a picture with you and we can all just shake your hand and thank you for your service.
Mr. Segovia. The guardians at central office are Dr. Sandoval and Mr. Segovia. So even though, everybody else is deployed at the campuses, we feel safe here at central office because of our guardians. Mr. Segovia and Dr. Sandoval.
Yeah.
Our next-
The next update is gonna be our 2024 accountability overview by our CNI team. This is not the taper to taper report that we usually do in January, because the taper report has not come out, but this is an overview as to where we are at this point. Yesterday, we presented to campuses, a consistent message, because I recorded the message and our CNI team was out of the campuses just to answer any follow-up questions, and this way everybody kind of heard it at the same time. We do have our principals and our CNI team here in case there are any additional questions as well. And then right after, they can leave, because I know that they've been working real hard every day. I'm gonna turn it over to Dr. Bessanice, Assistant Superintendent of CNI, but also of Counseling and SPED, and then our Director of CNI, Dr. Meister.
Thank you, Dr. Bettis. Good afternoon, Mr. Kufal, members of the board. This evening, as she mentioned, we're going to be reviewing the 2024 accountability projection overview. So this first slide, we wanted to really talk about KISD. As you are aware, the state labels groups of students for every district. So here in KISD, we have an average population of 2,500 students. Our economically disadvantaged students are about at 85%. Our special education are at 20%. And KISD is an open enrollment public school, so we welcome all students. Our surrounding districts, some of our surrounding districts, their average population is 651. Their economically disadvantaged are at about 48%, that's their average. Their special education average is about at 9%. However, many of our districts are open enrollment, but some also have an application process. I will now be going over all the state's averages. So let's begin with the overall math, grades 3 through 8, and algebra. And here what you can see, this is a percent of students that met grade level or were above in math. So at the state level, we went from 43 to 41%. It was a decrease of 2 percentage points across the state of Texas. In our overall RLA, Texas went from a 52 to a 53. So looking at the scores from the new STAR redesign test, we had an increase of 1%, a slight increase, or it stayed stagnant. That's the term that TA is using for some of these numbers that move just slightly. The state scores for overall science for grades 5 and 8 and biology are as follows. So here our state was at 46%, and they went down to a 42, which was a decline of 4 percentage points. Our social studies, grades 8 and US history, include last year's scores of 50% down to a 49. So there was only a negative 1%, a slight decrease or a stagnant score. So now the state looks at all the economically disadvantaged students in the state. So just to remind the board and our guest here, the definition of economically disadvantaged is a state statute that defines a student who is eligible to participate in the national free or reduced lunch program. So all of our students that meet that criteria fall under economically disadvantaged. So this graph depicts, for example, at the lower left is the math in blue. So our math for the economically disadvantaged students for the state went from 33 to 31. So that's a negative 2%. RLA in the green went from a 41 to a 42, which was an increase, a 1% increase. Science are the graphs in red. And that one also decreased from 34 to 31, which was a negative 3% percentage points. And then in social studies, it went from a 39 to a 38, so it was a negative 1%. It was declining a bit, and it's also staying stagnant. So now let's look at our special education group. So as the TEA defines special education, this is a specifically designed instruction that is meant for students who meet those needs with a particular disability in the state of Texas. So this is overall the average of how the SPED students performed in the state of Texas. So under math, it went from 16 to 15, so that was a negative 1 percentage point. RLA 17 to 18, that was a decrease of 1 percentage point. In science, we also see a decrease from 16 to 14 percentage points, which was a negative 2. And under social studies, a 19 percentage point to 18 in the purple, and that is a negative 1 percentage point. So the state scores overall indicate that there is a decline in the scores, or they are staying stagnant. So the accountability system had some changes, but I do want to ask you a question. I know all of us can remember back, and I'm dating myself, and I'll be dating some of you that remember, when we took exams, we needed to bring 3 things with us: a number 2 pencil, a Scantron, and a blue book. That's what we needed to take an exam in our schools. So now we have so many changes on our accounting system and how our students take. So for example, the methods, that has completely changed. I know we've already discussed this, but the methods are open-ended questions. We also have more interactive questions, and that means students have to manipulate the questions on the screen and all the support systems that they use, for example, in math. And also the evidence-based answers. They must read documents and answer with an evidence-based answer using evidence from the reading part. That is very different. The next changes that have come down from TEA are in the measurement, and that covers measurements within the domains 1, 2A, 2B, and 3. And at this moment, I'm going to ask Tanya to come up and just share, Ms. Williams, a little bit of the changes that are occurring with our measurement.
Good evening. So as Dr. Bessenite said, there were several changes when it comes to calculating the domains. And so when we look at domain 1, which is our student achievement, when it comes to elementary and middle school, that stayed the same. 100% of their domain 1 comes straight from the STAR exam. When it comes to the high school and the district, it's broken down into 3 different parts. 40% comes from the STAR performance, the other 40% from CCMR, and 20% comes from the graduation rates. And there was changes in calculation for CCMR. As of 2022, we now have to wait for the State of Defense to send us those enlistment reports in order for us to ensure that our students did enlist in the military and they get that CCMR point for that. In domain 2, it is broken up into 2 different parts. 2A, which is academic growth, and 2B, which is relative performance. The state will take the better of the 2 in domain 2. And now when it comes to domain 3, that is our closing the gaps. Where that changes and where the graphs from the state come into play is it only takes into our account our meets and our master's students. It does not take into our account our approaches. Because if they are only meeting at approaches, the state is stating that that gap hasn't necessarily been closed. And so in order to calculate closing the gaps, they only consider our meets and our master's kids. Any questions when it comes to the 3 different domains? Or the changes that were implemented? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. She has, in her new position, been attending all of the updates for the district. The next item that were also some changes were on the procedures, and as we're all aware, everyone is now taking online testing, and that includes those students that need accommodations. The next bullet is the new AI scoring and the challenges that are occurring because of the scoring. So the AI was used to score most of all of the open-ended questions. So we're going to talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. Then the last one is the new STAR alt requirements for SPED students and special ed students. So let me clarify that a little. What they actually did is they changed the language in STAR alt to be more precise, and they also revised the rubric. The federal law requires that only 1% of the population should be taking the STAR alt. So here in KISD, we've done extensive training on the STAR alt. Our diagnosticians and our administrators sit at art committees and review a form that talks about if a student qualifies for STAR or STAR alt. So many of the students in KISD that used to be on the STAR alt are now all taking the regular STAR. And so we have that data, and we're following what the federal law requires. Are we at 1%? We're not there yet, but we're very close to meeting the federal requirements. On this next slide, there's been discussion all across the state of Texas about the release of the exams. So first, let's start off with Dallas. Half of Dallas ISD students scored a 0 on writing STAR, but some are blaming the AI grading. Here in Waco area, you also see that the STAR results dip across Waco ISD, which is a very, very large district. Almost half of the students in Texas, fourth graders, scored a 0 on the STAR writing composition last year. Dr. Janice Jordan on the San Antonio Express, she is the deputy of superintendent for curriculum and instruction, and she stated that at Northside, 45% of the third graders and 50% of the fifth graders received a 0 on their constructed response questions this spring on their STAR English test. She is then quoted as stating, if the state drops in an area and the vast majority of the districts are dropping in the same place, it is an indication that perhaps more so than the nuances of the test and the matrix, not that the students are not mastering the content. So there is a lot of conversations from every district, small and large, top level administrators that are questioning this, the results, the preliminary results of the STAR. The same piece in Fort Worth. They mentioned here that about 54% of the test takers received a 0, and this is all having to do with the AI scoring. Now let's look a little closer at the preliminary scores for KISD.
So you've seen the reading language arts scores for third grade through English 2. These are the spring results. The summer results will be added to next year's scores, and only the passers will count towards the 2025. We have added some additional courses like practical writing in high school and algebraic reasoning. We've also added in middle school our reading contents for reading and for math as well. So the next page is our math. And so we've added these supports for our students as well, both in reading and math. And you'll see the math scores. And then you'll see the science and social studies scores. I'm a little taller, so I have to hold this up. So I apologize. So science and social studies, we're also promoting the high quality instructional materials in those areas. And we have our support staff that have been assisting at the campuses as well. So we've got our ITCs that have been going out, have their schedules out, have been visiting the campuses and assisting with the coachings and what have you. Now, in the following page, you'll notice the accountability projections are not final yet. And so we are still kind of waiting for the state to determine when they will be sharing those. In order to prevent from possibly publishing inaccuracy, we did not want to give a rating that was not published yet, according to TEA releases. There is a reminder about changes by TEA of the redesigned STAR and, of course, the refresh of the accountability system. We do have the new AI scoring challenges that have not just been challenges in STAR, but have also been challenges for the bilingual students as well. The new STAR alt requirements, of course, and I sat in on those arts as well, and so the changes and the way that it was affecting our students, I know was difficult. As I stated, our summer STAR scores will be added to the I'm sorry, I apologize, go ahead.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
You're saying that these are preliminary scores.
Yes, ma'am.
So are we anticipating these percentages to change? Or are these kind of?
It depends on when TA sends us their scores, like in the taper report, to me, that is the most specific, the most accurate. When we get them on the taper report, because they've for sure sifted out all of the snapshot kids. Just 2 days ago, there was an additional change on our on-data suite that we checked with Beams. And so, yeah, we're saying until it's on print from our taper report, then we'll know that for sure that it's final. That's why we like to do that final comparison of taper reports each year. Taper is the Texas Assessment Performance Ratings. Yes.
So, but the number of students, the total students that tested, that's not changing unless you all didn't, you don't have any because that snapshot or whatever.
Well, it could change because some of the snapshot kids may be pulled, or we may have some additional kids that are from other districts. So the number could change a little bit, not a lot, not a lot. Yes,
No, it shouldn't change a lot, but we don't want to say this is the absolute, and then somebody come and say, no, that's not what it said on the taper report. So we want to be very transparent about that,
But the information we have right now is within.
as most
Yeah,
current.
the most current.
Yes.
What we have for our district is close.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir. And keep in mind that our 2024 graduates will not count until 2025 ratings because it's the lagging indicator. So the CCMR, of course, affects us, and the score for next year is 80.89. Some of the next steps that our C9 department is taking is, of course, the PLC training that our administrators, I don't know how to work it. I'm learning how to work with both things. So our administrators have PLC training, and we've discussed that and shared that with you all with Lead Forward. Our staffing adjustments have been made, and movements we're still leveling some of the classes. Additional writing course, the practical writing that I discussed and mentioned for English and English 2-star, and then of course our algebraic reasoning for math. We do have the additional coaching through Eureka and Carnegie that will be available to our teachers, and they've already had some professional development. We have 2 elementary campuses that are participating in a math grant, and it's Harvey and Harrell, and we've already attended some of the trainings. We've had some of our coaches that also attended the training so that we can follow through with the internalization of plans and lesson planning, because that's key. All campuses will be held accountable to follow the district's curriculum expectations to ensure consistency, and we have our coaches out there working with the teachers already.
On the next slide, on next steps, the TEKS analysis for the new science TEKS have been conducted. Our teachers sat in the book review and were part of the selection committee for the new curriculum for the sciences. We have a reading academy teachers now at each elementary campus, and their job is to focus on students reading below grade level after they've been tested on the M class. So just to remind the board that last year we had Dr. Woodruff come, and she works for the University of Texas, and she's an expert in RTI, MTSS, and reading. She met with the CN9 team. We discussed some very strategic things that Kingsville needed to put in place to support our non-readers. And we were able to this year have a teacher at each campus who is being led by Ms. Perkins, oversees those 3 teachers. And we've invited Ms. Wakata to come here tonight just to share her experience of being a Reading Academy teacher in the first 2 weeks. Would you like to come up here and share a little bit with the board?
Harold.
I'm sorry, she's at Harold.
She's dedicated Harold.
Well, this is our second week. The first week, we tested our students. And we're picking up 4 at a time because that was recommended for us, right? But what I did tell Dr. Boots, because she came by on Friday, right?
Yes.
Friday. And on Friday, we had half a day. So I was able to work 5th grade because I'm working from 1st grade all the way to 4th grade. And I have about 10 classes of 4. That means I'm working with 40 students. So my goal is from here to December, having them all reading. That's my goal. And the kids' goals, because I was telling Dr. Boots that when they come into my classroom, one of the things I always have them do is, what is your mindset? What do you want for me to do for you? And there's a little, I think Dr. Boots took a picture of my little wall that I had there. It's okay not to know, but it's okay not to try. So when you come into my room, it's about you trying. Well, there was a little girl, I have to just talk about her. There was a little girl that I tested her on Monday, that was last week. Today, and we haven't even really started the program, but I said, she's a 4th grader, she's not reading, I need to get her reading even faster than before December, right? So I've been working really hard with her. Today, she says, go ahead and test me, I think I'm ready. And I said, okay, I'll test you. She knew all her letters and all her vowels, her sounds and everything. I was so proud of her. As we walked out the room, Mr. Cooper was coming out of his office, and she stops and says, you think I can go tell him the good news? I said, go tell him. Mr. Cooper, guess what? I know my alphabet, and guess what? I have a passage to take home today, and I'm gonna read. I'm gonna become a very good reader. So I see a lot of good things happening with all our campuses, because we do a lot of talking with amongst us. Hey, how are your kids doing? All the 3 Reading Academy teachers. This is something new for us, but I can tell you that the way I'm seeing right now, it's gonna be good. Our kids are gonna be reading because they have all that positiveness within them, and we're gonna do really good, I think. I hope so.
And notice she said it was a 4th grader who could not read. We have many overagers that cannot read, and they're coming to us. Some of them have been with us, some of them have come new to us. But that's why these reading teachers are so important, is to target those specifically and get them reading on grade level.
I'll also mention.
Thank you, Mr. Bacalba.
Thank you so much for coming. She shared her story. We thought no one can repeat except for her exactly the feeling of working with that student. I did want to add in, it's not on here, Dr. Pettis, but we've been also talking about what support we can provide for Gillette. And so we've been talking to Dr. Seguirre. She's already identified the students. And so we're looking at developing some type of support system for those students that are still struggling with reading, just basic reading. So we're gonna get there. I have all the confidence that we will.
Just for clarification, Dr. Boots is Dr. Bias-Fiddles. Her nickname is Dr. Boots because she wears boots all the time.
Well, we were both Dr. B. And we had
Yeah, that's
so
true.
she said, I'll be boots because she wears boots every day. So thank you for that clarification, Dr. Pettis. So social studies on the 4th bullet there, 3rd bullet, social studies focus on building vocabulary and also writing within the classroom. So we're working with our social studies teachers to not only teach the social studies, but have our students writing across the curriculum and ensuring that they're using the model of the exam so that they will have evidence-based responses. We share monthly CNI updates. We will be sharing CNI updates with the board monthly. We increased our rigor for our advanced and gifted and talented students. This year, we're using the Carnegie Advanced Math Curriculum for all of our advanced classes. We're going to continue to provide social needs, basic social needs, through our communities in schools, parent liaisons, and continue to do home visits to provide food pantry, clothing, etc. I also want to add here that we're so blessed that TAMUK, the university next door to us, is sending us a social work intern again. And she will be here working with our campuses And she'll be doing her internship under myself. I'll be supervising her. So we're excited to be partnering with the university. And then also, we're gonna be promoting special education staffing incentives, and I believe that's gonna be presented a little bit tonight. On the next slide, what you have here is you've seen all of the other accolades that Kingsville KISD has named that we've done. So this growth, however, is not counted in this year's accountability. So you can see that we've tripled our numbers in early college. We've quadrupled our numbers for industry-based certifications. We've also tripled our numbers for dual credit students earning credit. We have 96.9% of the seniors completed their FAFSA, and that's an enormous number compared to a few years ago. KISD graduates earned 83% of their CCMR points, which was an increase from 40. Also earned the Purple Star Award for every campus, and they also earned the Capturing Kids Heart National Showcase recognition at middle school and all the elementaries.
And I just want to clarify that, I'm sorry, the previous one, slide that talked about the comp score for CCMR was 80.89, but it will scale to an 83 or an 84. So that's why it says that.
I do have some questions on
Yes, ma'am.
that particular slide.
Yes, ma'am?
I know you said KISD tripled the numbers of early college investments.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you mean by triple?
We started 3 years ago with 27, and now we have 97 students that are currently in our early college
And
program.
I guess for next time, just put those numbers.
Oh, absolutely.
Triple, quadruple, just don't say anything to us. I'm just sure
Yeah. We can definitely add that next time. I know this has been presented
Right.
at State of the District and Convocation, so we will, for the purposes of the board, provide that for you. Absolutely. On the next slide, there we go. And this depicts all of the 11 pathways that our students have an opportunity. Not only that they're interested, but they're also attainable to every one of our HMK students at our high school. So here is where curriculum needs excellence. If we are doing the job that we need to be doing from pre-K all the way through high school, every one of our students will be either prepared to go to college, earn a certification, and or be ready for the workplace. And this last slide just really tells the whole story there. This is a picture of kindergarten students entering every one of our elementary campuses, alongside with the graduates from this past year. So it is our duty and our obligation to be ready and prepared each and every one of our students for their college and their careers in the future here at KISD. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
I have a
Chris?
question.
Yes, sir.
We talked about the RTI or the multi-tier, what it
Yes.
used to be, it's a different name now.
Yes. And
Is
yes,
that in place now? Did we develop that and do we have it out to the campuses?
yeah, so what we've done, sir, we've had training in the last few years. There's many models that you can actually get and print and follow. What we decided to do here at KISD is look at the data-driven models and then bring in experts. For example, Dr. Woodruff. I know Dr. Bettis mentioned in the future, we definitely would love for her to be participating either on Zoom to share her findings of KISD. But the most important thing she said was something, and Dr. Bettis knows that I've been mentioning this, that our biggest area is our elementaries. We have to start with the elementaries, providing them the resources they need to provide RTI and TSS within the schoolhouse. Even though we've taught teachers how to do small group instruction, we've taught teachers the rigor of the curriculum, they have their curriculum guides, they have their YAGs, they have their resources. They still have perhaps 22 students in this range. So now, the first thing she said is, to the curriculum team last year, and our elementary principals were there, remember when she came? They said, where is the rest of your support team? You need interventionists. Those that are just gonna focus on the children that are being left behind and work on that. So she is guiding us We have already the template built. We are looking at testing the students right now on this M-Class. We're identifying the children that in reading and math, and we're starting with those. Next will be Gillette, because we do know that students at Gillette are also, or some that have been retained. We've talked in great lengths about what are we doing in KISD to address the children, which we didn't have these programs before and have been retained once or maybe twice. And so we're looking at what we can do to support Gillette with those students, because what do students do when they don't know how to read and they're in classrooms really being asked to do rigorous instruction? They shut down, or as one student told me many years ago, that's why I misbehaved. I'd rather have gone to the office than to be embarrassed in front of my class.
And Dr. Woodruff talked a lot about, we have to focus on tier 1 instruction.
Yes.
So that way, they don't have to even get to tier 2 or
Tier
tier 3.
three. Correct.
So do we have I know you said you had a model or whatever.
Yes, we're working on the model. Ms. Perkins has been closely working with.
So we haven't distributed to the.
Not necessarily, we've used them in the past. For example, many of our systems, we had, for example, Sangold and all the other systems that we have, they have MTSS, but what that does, you just log in. I pulled Johnny, I'm sorry, Dr. I'm using, but I pulled Johnny and I helped him with this as a tier intervention. They document, but we hadn't got to what did we actually do.
So how do we monitor the effectiveness of that?
Well, right now for reading, what we are, right now with our reading program, Ms. Perkins is solely responsible for the elementaries and their reading. And she will be monitoring the students that are in right now, how they're advancing, because we meet on Fridays with the reading teachers and see where they are. We're gonna be doing the same with the math. Right.
So then Mrs. Perkins will monitor the students, provide the feedback to the teachers,
Yes.
and then so that they can follow through with whatever needs
Yes.
to be done, and provide whatever
Yes,
interventions
ma'am.
are needed. So nowhere, is it anywhere documented?
Yes,
Besides
ma'am.
online?
We have running reading records, and then Dr. Woodruff, even though she's in Austin, we Zoom with her, and she's guiding us as to, they've done extensive research on MTSS, and she told us.
And I truly understand that. I
Uh-huh.
just want to see, how can we intervene, and that's what y'all are doing.
We're doing that now.
In the regular ed program, in the tier 1.
Correct.
To kind of-
And what is that gonna hopefully also be able to help Ms. Salinas, and that is the huge referrals that
Well,
we have
that's,
received.
that's what I was.
And we've known that, but we just needed the staff, the training, and the supervision of what we needed to implement. And I know the principals are here, and I know they feel so like, thank you, we really need this, and I
And I
wanna
just
thank
feel
you.
that that'll cut back on some of those referrals.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
That was gonna be my comment, that if we do that and have that in place, through the tier system, that we won't have so many referrals going in, and then have a 20% population. So you can't just say he can't read, there you go, test it.
Right, Mr. Middle, I'll also just interject that next will be, yes, it's academic and behavior, but then it's also helping to educate and change the culture. Because we have parents first week saying, I need the child tested. So they're getting that information either from their neighbors, other folks that if, somebody is behind, just set a referral and get them through. So I talked to Ms. Zimmerman, she's in an art at the high school right now, but we're looking at doing some parent trainings here at KISD and also in our communities, because I think once parents really know what that means versus just providing the help with the reading, then we really are going to be, and Ms. Rubagaba spoke about what we're doing right now, but we also want to extend that through the summer and create a bridge program. So we continue to find these students, intervene, remediate, and get them where they need to be. They deserve it.
So like with Mr. Bacalba's group and then with the other 2 elementaries, that'll be part of what we're bringing to you all every month?
Yes.
Okay, how are these 40 kiddos, where, without of course showing names, but
Right.
showing how are they progressing? What are we, working on with them? Will they be able to exit out? Because things like that. Did you want to say something? You can come over here.
Say something.
Did she say she was shy earlier?
Well, we have a group that I'm documenting every Thursday because I have to make sure that whatever I taught for that week, my students are gonna learn it, right? Or what else do I need to do? Or do I need to switch students in and out? Because if I have students that do not know the letters and sounds, well, I can't group the students with my high tier threes, because I'm working with tier threes. And tier threes can be different levels. Tier threes can be no letters and sounds. Over here, CBC, the early reading CBC with teacher assistance. Over here, we have students that can read CBC with no sight words. So my goal is get them all in there. So I document, and I know Ms. Perkins, she came up with an awesome Google sheet. So every Thursday, I'm typing and typing. And this little boy went up. Now I need to work with this. So I'm very specific in what I'm typing. And I know all my roles, right? Because I work with pre-K all the way to 5th grade.
Right.
I've had 25 years of experience, right? So I know what they're lacking. And what they're lacking is 2nd grade. 2nd grade is the main grade that teaches all the grade level, the reading skills that they need. So that's what I'm working on in and out. So we document. And the thing that I like to do is, because in case there's an audit or something, and I see that child not moving up, guess what? I have documentation, right? I have the testing, the program that we have, the UFly, has tests in there for progress monitoring. We also have M-Class. So M-Class is a very good program. And then, of course, they're gonna have my documentation, so there's 3 documentations in there.
And we
So
were
I
real
just have to say
selective on the people we chose to be these interveners, I guess you could say, in each of the elementary campuses. And you can see how dedicated she is. That's exactly how dedicated they all are.
Yes, and we all work together. They're wonderful teachers. We've had a lot of experience, and we're always talking after school. In fact, we decided to meet tomorrow after work hours. Let's help each other. How is that your students doing? We're always combining, so
And she
our
said a
goal
good
is for
thing.
our students to read.
She said a good thing. She said, how are our students doing? That's something that we said we're gonna be very deliberate about every time we're meeting. How do you know? Well, how do you know? How do you know this is working? Because
And
if we can't prove
we
it,
have to have data. Data is what we need, and I feel like we have a Ms. Perkins that does an awesome job, helping us with all that.
with all the reading.
Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Also with the data that we have that came in on our students, that in the tested graded areas, I'm assuming that the campuses have that, and those have been broken down also. Have they been, tiered as far as the STAR, results that we got last year? Are we working on that? Is there a system in place for that? Because you have to want the score to go out, and you have, looking at our data, we need a lot of help. So are they being tiered that way in as far as scheduling? And I know that we talked about extra reading classes, math classes, things like that. Are we getting everybody that needs to be in there?
Yes, sir. Well, I know we have a scheduled principals meeting tomorrow. We're gonna be meeting with the principals to discuss a little bit deeper the accountability on their campuses. Some of the things we've spoken about before that we've done is when we brought the data, the raw data about how students were performing, we were strategic in sharing that information with all the administrators so that they would know which teachers they really needed to support. So along with the administrators, CNI are gonna be coming to the classroom to model for those teachers. For the secondary classes, it was really important that, Ms. Moore, oh my God, we can't even say enough about Dana Moore saying yes for coming to Kingsville. But very, very strategic in making sure that the school counselors had all the right students in the right classes. I went over, we met for an entire half a day, and they were like, keep looking at this list, make sure we have not missed a student. And so she also led many of the PLCs this week, and they're doing the work.
There's no more free periods. I mean, if these
Right.
kids need that practical writing or algebraic reasoning, that's what we're giving them,
There we
for
go.
sure. And we're doing that for middle school also with Dr. Isagire, who's been also another godsend. They're all great. And with the support classes that we're doing in Gillette as well.
So are they still required, how, I don't even know if it still exists, but before, students that failed a particular subject, we were supposed to provide so many hours
Yes.
of.
So we are looking at that.
So,
Just tracking it.
like, practical writing, does that count towards the hours that they're needing?
Our practical writing is, it's teacher-led. The IXL program is also being used to track those hours. So, if it's a person-to-person tutorial, then it counts. If you're not using a TEA approved program. So that's when we have the IEXA program. And then the practical writing is teacher direct instruction.
So how
So
many hours do they need per subject?
it
For
depends.
content that they failed?
Yeah, it depends because if they didn't pass, let's say, for example, English 1, and then they take English 2, and so now you've got 30 hours for sure that you have to take. Now, if you didn't score, if you scored, you didn't pass low or you didn't pass high, if you didn't pass low, then you've got 30 hours. If you didn't pass high, then you'll have 15 hours. So it just depends on the student, so you have to really look at each student to determine how many hours they have.
So those hours are being fulfilled by them attending?
They don't have to
practical writing,
attend, they can attend the after-school tutoring, they can attend the Friday, as long as it is a person-to-person tutorial. Now, the practical writing is different, Ms. Linas, because that is a class that they're taking. So because it's during the school day, it doesn't count towards those hours, but it is helping support and prepare them for the expectation.
So those hours have to be above and beyond? the
Has to be above and beyond, except for if it's through IXL. If it's through IXL, they can be throughout the day.
I had 3 questions, Dr. Bessanice.
Yes.
Regarding the next steps. Okay, so it says meet with each PLC, review and analyze data. Does this occur weekly, monthly? When does it occur?
First thing that we did at the end of the summer, I think it was maybe May, early June, is we brought in Lead Forward and they trained all the administrators on how to lead a PLC meeting. And so everybody's been trained, not only our principals, but our assistant principals went through that intense training. Because again, our expectation as we're growing our leaders in Kingsville, we want our APs as well to be very well versed in that. So when do PLCs occur? On our calendar, it is, for example, on Bright Blue Fridays, and our principals schedule the PLCs with their team, and then CNI steps in to support. We've created a document that is just going to be shared with the principals tomorrow so that they can document their PLC notes and carry it on from week to week so that CNI knows if we need to step in and help with a resource or a teacher retraining, or the principal says, this is what we discussed, we really need some more support, for example, in English, then we're ready to step in and provide that. So that is when it occurs. So it's very intentional, it is scheduled, and the team is there to support it, but it's principal led.
And then the next one was additional coaching for K through 8 math teachers. When does that occur?
Okay. Dr. Ballesteros mentioned that, and that is Eureka and Carnegie. We've contracted the company, they bring in their team, and they do additional coaching with the teachers. They come into the schools, the teachers know they're coming, and so they come into the classrooms and help the teachers either with their lesson planning or they're watching the teacher model this new math curriculum. They help them, they break it down, and then sometimes they even model for them.
And Ms. Flowers can probably go into more detail, if you'd like her to, because she's
Overseeing that.
So is this weekly or monthly, or is it ongoing, or?
So this year, we do have a set number of sessions that we've paid for in advance. So I know for a fact Carnegie, we have 10 days in total, and we will spread them out over the course of the year. So middle school will have some days, high school will have some days, and then we'll have some days where our middle and high school teachers are together, and they're doing professional development as a whole. So it's more of a few hours of professional development altogether instead of the modeling and observing and coaching throughout the day.
And then my last question, Dr. Bessanice, the 2 elementary campuses that are participating in the ESE2 grant?
Yes, you said it was Harold and Harvey,
Yes.
but the ITCs from all the campuses are attending because Pettis, they only granted 2 campuses, they selected 2 campuses for the grant. So we do have the ITCs all attending, so they bring back the information and can share with the Pettis campus.
Looks like a train the trainer kind of deal?
Sort of. And I see everybody nodding because we have our team.
So then they go to ESC, and then they bring it back, and then.
Yes, the math lead teachers from the campuses, the math lead teachers are attending the training. So they do come back and share with the rest of the team.
The last couple of slides that deal with the achievements that we have, I think are very impressive, and it shows that education is more than just a test score. I don't believe in just looking at test scores, but that's the game we play. That's the system that we're faced with. Early on in the presentation, we were dealing with all the state scores. What we were looking at were met for a wide range. I've stopped on RLA. Grades 3 through 8, English 1 and 2.
It does?
There's a big bucket of grades that we've got some average scores on. Do we as a district ever get numbers in that same format? And here's where I'm going with this. I think it's an excellent visual about where state has gone pre-COVID to now. And what I'd like to see is somehow, where's CASD's dot in all of that? And how has it moved over the years? And are we really seeing a closing the gap? Many years ago, my competitors remember House Bill something made us set some goals. And our goals culminate next May. I mean, that's when we really said that this was what we wanted to see in, I believe, third graders. And to me, it'd be interesting to see, and it may not be on this same rubric, it may be some other matrix that shows grade level by grade level. And I'm not doing this to play a gotcha. I just think that we've got more movement in this district sometimes than we think and that we realize. And we have seen growth in the approaches, and the meets and the masters is what I think we need to be focusing on also.
It's a great idea. Thank you, we definitely will fix that.
I like the dot on those.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. How many administrators from, you said the training that you all have provided them last year, how many of our administrators are no longer here that participated in the trainings last year but have left the district? Do we have a number?
I'm looking at my team and I can only think of one person.
Our high school principal
Yeah, Jeremy.
retired. And
Right.
Everybody else that took the training is here?
Yes, well,
well,
Yes.
Ms. Moore is new.
Morris New,
And she was here last
yeah,
year.
she went through the training.
Ms. Moore is new, but she's still got the training, as soon as she got.
Yeah, so she knows how to run PLCs, but the one we did, her specifically, was from Lead Forward. So Lead Forward, of course, is the partnership we have, who does a phenomenal job. That was their first training they launched in June, and we were one of the first districts to get into the training. So all of our assistant principals and principals, but you're correct. I do have the packets left from that training, and I'd be more than happy to share with the people that are new, and even some of our interns. The interns that were here last year went, but those that are new, they definitely would appreciate that level of training.
So we're continuing to work with Lead Forward.
Mhm.
It's like the webinar that's gonna happen tomorrow, right, is another webinar.
Anything else, Mr. Garcia?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Again, I want to thank the board for your support. We have a ways to go, but we definitely have a plan, and we're executing the plan, and we have the most committed administrators and CNI staff here to serve KISD. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move now to item number 6B, which is a report on H.M. King High School foundation repairs. This can be found on page 25 of our packet. Dr. Pitts.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper, Dr. Pettis, members of the board. As you remember, we have an issue with drainage at the high school, and we actually had a lawsuit, and we were awarded $1.8 million for that lawsuit, and those funds are designated funds. We can only use that for that problem until we repair that situation. So we contracted with a project management firm, AGCM, to investigate the problem, figure out exactly what the underlying issues were, and then recommend potential solutions. And Amos Byington from AGCM is going to be here to talk a little bit about the problems that they've encountered, that they've identified, what needs to be done to rectify those problems, and the cost estimate for those problems. They have kept us in the loop all the way. Dr. Sandoval, myself, have met with Amos and also with the engineer, and we've had a surveyor involved all the way through the process, and their communication has been excellent. So we're at the point where they're going to present to the board, and then after that, then we are going to go out for bids, and then we will bring the results of those bids to the board. So I'm going to have now Amos Byington from AGCM do the presentation.
Good evening, board members. My name is Amos Byington. I'm an architect. I work with AGCM. We were hired to do project management services for the high school drainage improvements. I have a slideshow here. I think also you may have a document that is kind of a board update to review as well. I'm going to kind of talk about where we've been and where we're going. So, I'm going to start off with just the project purpose. First of all, there's a tremendous amount of rainwater that collects underneath the building. That building is it's a slab that is supported by piers, so there's a crawl space underneath of it, and currently right now, a great deal of, yep, that's fine. Can everybody hear okay? There's a great deal of rainwater that gets underneath that slab. And also the other main goal is collectively we're trying to protect your investment in the community investment in this building. So the project scope was for us is project management services, and we were given a report that was produced during the litigation phase. It quantified quite a bit of all the information about the efficient work that was done at the time of the building construction, and so we use that as our basis. I don't know, part time reading that, so I'm going to look at this. And then we were given the mission to turn the report into construction and correct all the deficient work. And we had to do it in a way that we were responsible with your funds. Just a little bit about the process. I have a few slides I'll go through fairly quickly, but just talking about the process. It's really a series of actions. There was a phase where we were collecting data, and we did that by looking at recent reports and also looking at the original construction documents. We also went through an interview phase. We did talk to Mike, and then also there's two gentlemen that created the reports. It was actually turned out to be two reports. A report and a rebuttal report. We talked to both of those gentlemen as well. Okay. Okay, and then the next phase was design service procurement. That was typically that's a somewhat simplistic process. In this case, there was 2 RFQs that were advertised, and there was no responses at the time. We contacted several civil engineers at that point, and we had a focus. We wanted to focus on civil engineers that had quality work, that were available, and that they had a reasonable fee as well. We negotiated with 4 different firms. We saw fees ranging from $30,000 to $135,000. We settled with and made a recommendation that you guys actually hired and did a company called Coast Life Engineering. They've been a wonderful firm. They've been very responsive to anything that I bring to their attention. And I want you to know that your project has benefited from them as well. So if you ever get a chance to shake their hands, I highly recommend it. Thank you. All right. Then the next phase was there was site investigations, and there were several things that we had to do for understanding what was going on on the site. But the first thing was that we hired a surveyor. He did a topographical survey, which was the elevation of it, all the different surfaces around the front and the back of the building. It was very important to understand how things drained at that point. So that was the first thing that was done. I spent some time with a civil engineer on the site. He has also a team of a landscape consultant and also an irrigation consultant, and have also visited this site as well. And just recently, we had to do a little bit of exploratory. We had to remove masonry block. That's a face brick that's on the outside of the building to understand what was going on inside the wall. And we actually did that today and had really great results. And so happy to get that behind us. There was a design process, and we started with a schematic design process. We spent some time with you guys talking about the game plan and then where those game plans were lead us. Our civil engineer provided a permanent set of documents, which actually was recently submitted to the city of Kingsville. And actually today we met with the building official, and he gave us the okay to get a building permit. So we're getting those respects. And we have a bid set of documents. So, soon the game plan is to go out to bid, and so we're prepared for that as well. There is an action where we look at budget and cost estimating. We actually did two independent cost estimates of our game plan that is in the drawings. The specifications, we compared the two, and then we compared it to the available funds that you guys have. There is going to be a construction procurement, so that will be when we go out to bid. We will take a leadership role in that process, and then lastly, once we get a contractor negotiated and under contract, we will be monitoring the progress and keeping the contractor accountable. So that's kind of where we've been. We have a set of documents that has some solutions in it, and I'm going to go over. There's 9 actually issues that we have identified using all of the information that we've kind of, all the processes that I previously talked about. We came up with 9 basic deficiencies that need to be addressed. They're urgent, and we came up with solutions for each. I'm going to take you through these one at a time. Is there any questions before I move forward?
I have a question, but maybe the 9 deficiencies will cover them.
Okay. So I have them down as priorities. This is priority 1. About 85% of all the water that goes underneath that building is contributed from the amount of water that's collected on top of the roof, and it drains down the roof drains and the downspouts. And you can see there that they're dumped right at the base of the building. Currently, there is a lot of things working against that. The slope of the grade is such that it's sloping towards the building. So at that point, all the water stays right there. And we'll see that there are some areaways that give some cross ventilation underneath the slab. All of that water, probably 100% of the water goes underneath the slab. And at that point, it doesn't have anywhere to go. It'll sit there likely for a month, depending on the amount of water that goes underneath there. Go to the next one. So this is just an informational slide. It basically says how much water will be collected on top of that roof and go underneath that slab in a 1 inch rain event, and it's approximately 62,000 gallons. 63,000 gallons. So this priority one is the highest priority because it will address about 85% of our problems here. It is really just to take all of the downspouts and put them in a pipe and run them out to the parking lot, which was where it originally was designed to go, and from there the parking lot's drained into the street right of ways, which goes into the storm sewer system. And so our challenge here is just to we're going to connect a pipe at the end of each downspout and roof drain. It's going to go underground, so it's not seen anymore. It's going to go and enter into the curb, exit the curb right at the sidewalk where it goes into the parking lot, which was the original design intent. Again, that'll take care of about 85% of your problems. So, and it's fairly easy and inexpensive, so your return on your investment is really high.
That's the front of the building, is that correct?
I'm sorry?
That's the front of the building where all those are gonna be.
Yes, if you want, can you go back? Yes, that's and I put in these are some early schematic diagrams that we put together at this point. We've got pipe sizes and all that kind of stuff. But the idea was just that, each one of those collectively goes into a pipe and eventually it makes it to the street. You're right, that's the front of the building. It's only actually half of the front of the building. Okay. So this is another deficiency. So this is priority number 2. This will take care of the other 15%. There's some other things that we'll be doing as well that will also make sure that no water gets underneath the building. This is a drawing. It's a section through a beam in the foundation, and it shows that beam is floating. That concrete beam goes all the way over to a column and connects to a column. So those beams you don't see the column beyond, but it is. And then you see this kind of a concrete panel that's leaning against the bottom of that concrete beam, and it goes down to the ground. That is a concrete retaining panel, and they go all the way around the entire building. The report suggests, and there's photographs in the report, so those weren't installed correctly. There's gaps between them, and there's waterproofing on there that wasn't installed correctly. And in fact, that waterproofing system was supposed to have the drainage, kind of a French drain at the bottom that was never installed. That would be a very expensive, and it only helps you for about 15%. And so it would be a very expensive solution to go and take all those out and put them back. So we came up with a different idea, and that is just to abandon that in place and stop the water before it even gets down there. And there is a fabric that we're going to bury in the water, and that's what that thick red line shows, that there's a piece of fabric that goes underneath what's called a mow strip. It's a little piece of concrete. I'll show you some of the photographs of that in a minute, but that red line is a fabric that goes down. It'll keep the water from even getting down to that level to begin. Yes?
Mr. Martin, so is the crawl space important? I mean, does it need a crawl space?
It does. It's intentionally designed in a lot of South Texas, and the reason is it has to do with the kind of soils we have. We have clay, expansive soils, and so if you put a slab on top of that, and there'll be a lot of movement. That's where you get cracks in all of your slabs. So what happens is they do an elevated slab, and it's basically, you'll see them go put a bunch of piers in the ground, and then they'll pour these concrete columns on top of those piers. And so the slab is really elevated about, in this case, anywhere from 3 to 5 feet above the grade. And so that's that crawl space underneath there. Okay? Okay, so this is the priority number 3. This is a photograph of those that's a photograph of an areaway. And so, I was telling you earlier that there is cross ventilation that goes, that's like a vent, where air can go underneath there. There's several of them, but as you can see right there, those are leaves that go right up to it, and they drain, the water is just draining right down to the bottom. You can see where the leaves are. The idea here is that we're gonna take those areaways and we're going to we're gonna pour some concrete on the top and raise the top elevation of them about 8 inches, so water doesn't get into them anymore. They're lower than probably they needed to be, especially given the slope of the soils around that area. So this is priority number 3. We're gonna extend the height of these areaways all the way around the building. This one's about just the topographic itself. Remember I was saying that right now things are sloping to the building and we need them to slope away from the building. It may be a little bit difficult to see, but there's a mow strip there and the soils are way below that. And our game plan is actually, it's gonna be another priority, but we're gonna raise that mow strip 1 block high. It's gonna go up another 8 inches, and that will give us the ability to backfill some earthwork and raise it around the building so that the water slopes away from the building at that point. Now, keep in mind, we're piping out all of the roof drain water, which is the majority of the water. So at this point, we're just addressing water that makes it to the ground from the sky.
So you're just gonna build up then off that one? You're gonna build forms up on this and pour?
I'm actually it's in not good shape, so we're gonna tear it out, put a new one, and then we're gonna backfill with it to make it higher along the edge of the building. It's very strange in that there's not a lot of slope between the building and the sidewalks along the parking. So there's not a lot of slope that you can have to begin with. We did some investigation today on some of the masonry, and we did discover that the face brick wasn't constructed the way the documents suggested that they be. However, it's going to work to our benefit in this case. It's going to allow us. We took out a block to understand where the through-wall flashing was, and the weeps. The weeps seem to be a little up 1 block, which will allow us to raise the elevation of not just the mow strip, but the earth, and it won't ever affect the rest of the building. So it'll give us some slope to the sidewalks.
Will this require any kind of pressure test on the concrete before it's poured?
So none of it's structural, but we typically we do some testing for all concrete. So we have that's a requirement in the specifications. So we'll have a testing agency out during the concrete pours and do a slump test, and also we can take some cylinders and go make sure that it reached the right strength. Yes. Okay, so that's priority 4. Okay, this is the mow strip. You can see there, it's underneath those, where it's right up against the building, and you can see there's a bunch of leaves on top of it. It's very low. In many places, it's not in good shape. It's cracked, and so we're going to remove it and replace it. It's going to be replaced higher by that.
I was gonna ask you a question when you go back,
Yes.
when you take it out and put the new one in, as far as around the building, how deep are you gonna go down with the concrete? You said you wanted to raise it up 1 block. How deep are you going down?
Actually, it's going to do 2 things. It's going to be raised up, and it's also it was built too short. So the further we move it out, the further the water is moved away from the building as well. It'll be approximately 2 feet wide, and you're right, it's gotten fairly thick at this point. It's going to be about almost a foot thick. And the reason is because we wanted to also tie into the the sides of the areaways, so it's flush. The top of the area, the new top of the areaways and the top of the mold strips should be at the same elevation. It'll be about a foot thick because we want to down into the slab and make sure that it doesn't crack away like it's done already. Okay, so currently there is, and I use this very loosely, there is a cross space drainage plan. It does, this is a true fact, there's also mentioned in the report that this system was never designed to remove any volume of water. It was really in case there was a pipe burst underneath there, or there's some sort of condensation. So it was never, the pipes are not sized to move any kind of water whatsoever. In fact, at this point, we believe that there's been so much water in there that it has, the pipes have been filled with silt, and you can see that in the sump pit as well. It's all filled with dirt at this point, but it was never designed to take any volume of water. So the first thing is to stop the water from going underneath there. The second thing is we're going to go in there, clean out all those pipes. We're going to scope them to make sure that they're all still in good working condition. There was a pump, a sump pump in there that is undersized, so we're going to replace that with the appropriate size pump.
So is that gonna be a bigger diameter as far as, where the water drains into, for that bigger pump?
It's really not, it's not gonna, what we're doing is just gonna make what's there work for the function that was there to begin with. It's not, it's not gonna take on any added capacity, so it's still, we're there, we need to fix it. Also, all of the heights of all the drains underneath the building were too high, so water now can't get into them until it gets to a certain level. So we're going to adjust the height of those drains. Okay. Priority number 7. Okay, so you can see this in the picture on the top. Currently there is a spray on applied insulation, and in the moisture it is started to deteriorate. And I've spent some time with the manufacturer of that. He's suggesting that it's probably, I was trying to figure out if there was some salvageable material, and he's suggesting that it's probably very unlikely. So it needs to be removed and replaced. I talked with another manufacturer of some, it's a closed cell product, which I think is more appropriate, and so we'll go back with a closed cell spray foam insulation.
Sponge, pardon my foolishness, but I'm not an engineer. So, on this insulation here, this is the type of insulation that keeps cold in, keeps heat out. Is that the type of insulation we're talking about here?
So yes, it is. There's not a lot. So your walls and your roof are usually more important because this is an enclosed space, so the temperature inside this space may somewhat stay constant, where outside your roof is exposed to hot or cold weather. So your insulation in other areas of the building is far greater. There is still some heat and cold properties that do happen underneath the slab. So it won't be very thick. It's only to meet the R value, it'll only be a couple inches thick. And you can see there it's not very thick as well. But what we go back with is something that is code compliant.
Now, that when they first put it in, and there had to be some kind of regulation for how thick it should have been, I would assume.
Yeah, there.
On that kind of money the money spent on it. I mean, is it what I'm trying to say is when they sprayed it in, was it supposed to be 2 inches thick, 3 inches thick under there?
I didn't do the research on what the code was at that time. A lot of things have changed in recent times as far as energy requirements and so forth. And so I didn't go back and see what they were
So we should
requiring.
have better materials now to insulate.
You're right.
As opposed to when we built.
You're right. Well, we have, in fact, I don't recommend going back with that same product.
No.
And there are open cell and closed cell systems. And I think that we'd go back to a closed cell system. Priority number 8, so additionally, you can see there's some pipe hanging underneath that slab. There are pipe hangers that are used for pipe and also conduit that hang underneath the slab. Many of those have started to deteriorate with rust, and so we're replacing the appropriate ones.
What, are you gonna replace it with something different that's not gonna?
It's the same, but the game plan is for it to be drier there in the future, so it shouldn't be an issue. Yes. And I should say that, our approach to this, I think, is a responsible way of doing it. We'll have a unit price from the contractor for one pipe hanger, and then we'll do at that time, and then we'll have an allowance of about $16,000. And so we're not just blanketly replacing them all. We're going to make the contractor verify that this one needs to be replaced and this one doesn't. So we're only paying for what we need to, only replacing what we need to. Priority 9, and so what we've also, earlier I was saying there's not a whole lot of slope from the building to the parking lot. And so what does that mean? That means a lot of the sidewalks up close to the building are pretty flat. They don't drain very well. And there's not a whole lot we can do about that other than put a trench drain in there. And so we're putting a trench drain across the front of all the entrances into the building, and that trench drain will dump into the same pipe system that's taking the rainwater from the roof and taking it off. So we're going to reinforce the idea that water doesn't get past that trench drain. It's a safety measure. And that's kind of the game plan at this point. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Just one last question. So after we make all these repairs with the money, are you gonna come back one last time and make sure that everything that was done, all these 9 steps or whatever we adopt, see if the problem is being corrected?
So in that report, you'll see some other recommendations, that things that should be watched. They don't need to be repaired at this point, but we should monitor. We typically will come back out at the 1-year mark for warranty issues. We'll definitely be here all the way through construction and make sure the contractor has done everything they're supposed to do and the closeout is appropriate. And then we typically will come back out at a 1-year anniversary just for warranty issues.
And is 1 year the minimum or maximum, or is there more warranty? In other words, extended time?
So, we would be happy to help you with it, and so I'm sure we can work that out. But usually, contractor warranties their work for 1 year. And so I like to come out at 11 months and do a punch list and say, okay, all right, no, this didn't work, so we need to fix that when appropriate.
You're gonna be involved in the bid process and also the bid evaluation process, correct?
Correct. We typically, I think there's different ways to do it, but in this case, I think the best thing to do is, and we can continue to discuss it and make adjustments, but to have a best value type bid approach. So we'll have a contractor submit qualifications and other information about their firm in addition to their fee. And then we usually have a grading criteria, so we go through and grade them all, and that's how we get to the best value.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Pennington?
I did want to share the cost estimate. Could we pull up 1B, please? So scroll all the way down to the bottom. Mr. Byington has really detailed everything that we need, and you see at the bottom. Can you blow that up a little bit bigger, please? And then scroll down. So you see 1.4 million and change. Again, what we have in the designated funds is 1.8. So if the bids come in a little bit higher, we have some leeway. If the bids come in a little bit lower, then we do have some extra money that can be used for other repairs in the district. Any other questions? So again, the next step is going out for bids. Before we do anything, the bid would be brought before the board before anything would start.
So the change will go in the general fund earmarked for building?
It's actually in our construction fund right now, so it's completely separate from our general fund, and it has been waiting there ever since the completion of the lawsuit. It's never been part of our general fund at all. Oh, I'm sorry, you're talking about whatever is left over. I'm sorry, whatever is left over will stay in our construction fund, and then we can pay other repair projects out of the construction fund. I'm sorry, Mr. Chapman.
So we can use it for roofs, or we can use it for parking lots?
Yes, exactly, if we have money left over, correct. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Cunningham.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
All right, we move now to item 6C, which is a report on health insurance. This can be found on page 26 of our packet. Dr. Pitts.
Thank you, Mr. Coupon. So we're going to do a kind of a review of where we are and where we are going to have options that need board consideration. So right now we have a health insurance plan through December 31 of 2024. Nothing that we have is going to change until December 31 of 2024. Once January 1 comes, that's when we renew our plan. We are, again, proposing renewing our plan, our self-funded plan as of January 1, 2025. Then we need to make a decision, and we're going to be bringing some information to you in the next couple of meetings over the next month of, do we want to continue with self-funded, or do we want to entertain the option of moving to TRS? If we move to TRS, the soonest it really would be feasible would be a year from now, would be September 1 of 2025. We also have an option of continuing out the calendar year till December 31 of 2025 and possibly going to TRS in January 1 of 2026. So we're going to explore all those options, and then a little bit I'll call up Mr. Esquivel to talk about the difference between self-funded and fully funded, and we're going to take a look at what would change if we move to TRS and answer any questions that you might have. But again, this is something that we wouldn't do, and the earliest we would do would be September 1, 2025. So we're looking at a year from now. So let's talk about why we're even considering this to begin with. So our biggest cost is salaries. We know that. We know our second biggest cost is health insurance, and the board has tasked us to what can we do to save money and balance the budget. And this is really probably the second biggest thing that we can do to move the needle on balancing the budget, because we spend anywhere from $2.5 to $2.7 million every year on health insurance, depending on claims. Sometimes we do better on claims, sometimes we don't do as well. So if you look at what other districts put in about $300 on average a month, $306, and we put in $479. I want to point out that even though we have 316 employees on a plan, we put in $479 for all our employees. And the reason why we do that is to hedge a little bit against claims. We need a fund balance so that we don't have to pull from our general fund. And this is something that we've done for the last 20, 25 years. This is something that other districts do as well too. You never want to be right on the border as far as having to pull from the general fund at the end of the year. You don't want to not budget for it. Now, currently we have a fund balance of about $500,000, which is fairly good. The last 2 years, this year, we're projected to run about $150,000 to the good. In other words, to pay out $150,000 less than we originally budgeted. Last year, we were closer to $250,000 to the good. We paid out about $250,000 left than what we budgeted. But at the same time, again, we're still budgeting about $2.7 million a year. That's how much we're paying into the plan every year. And that's why we're looking at possibly what can we do to save money. One of the biggest things we can do is to get our contribution lower and get the employees' contribution more in line to what our other districts are paying. And as you look at the premiums there, you've seen the slide several times before. Look at that first one again. Look at how our high deductible is 0, and look at what the other districts are paying. We're about $93 below on that particular item. $599 below high deductible on employee and spouse of what other districts employees are paying. $396 for employee and children. I won't go down the list, but those numbers in red are the average of what we are paying more than what other districts are. Now, several of you have talked about that it is definitely unfeasible to go up that much in 1 year to our employees, because we have not gone up actually in the last 10 years, we've actually gone down on premiums, whereas other districts are going up about 7% per year, according to Market. So it's not feasible to go up that much in 1 year, and we are proposing a gradual approach over time, so that it is not such a burden to our employees. But the reason, again, why it's such an important thing to look at is because the biggest two things are, one, the number of employees that we have, and number two, the amount that we're paying those employees, and we're paying a lot into the health insurance plan. So directly, if we do not target this, really the biggest other thing to move the needle is to reduce the number of employees we have in the district. Or there is a third option, it is to decrease the amount that we're paying each employee. Now, normally that is a nuclear option that is only done when a district declares financial exigency. In other words, they're not going to be able to make payroll, and we don't want to get to that point. That's why we're trying to, a year ahead of time, get ahead of this issue so that we don't have to get to a drastic measure. Can we move to the next slide, please? I'm sorry, no, I mean the next spreadsheet. So this is what we're proposing for next year. Again, it's a modest increase, and we're going to, you see the increase right there. The high deductible plan, we're proposing a $10 increase for employees only, a $43 for employee and spouse, $24 for employee and children, $59 for employee and family. And you see moving down, even though, and then in the very next column, you see the expected revenue gain to the plan by doing that for each of those items. Could you scroll down to the bottom, please? So you see that with the insurance premium increases, it would increase $158,000 of revenue to the plan. Now you see how many employees are on each of the plans. 316 current employees on a plan. Now, we were meeting with this group, Mr. Esquivel, earlier today. We've had a couple of meetings with him, and he rightly pointed out that if we're looking at decreasing the number of staff through attrition next year, then we're going to have less people on the plan. So that is also going to be a savings to the plan. If you have less people on health insurance, you're not paying as much else out, and that was a great insight by Mr. Esquivel that he pointed out to us today. Could you scroll up to the top, please, again? I'm sorry, we've got to be back and forth a little bit here. So, what the district costs would be for each of those plans. So we were tasked to say, what happens if we went to TRS? What would that do if we went to TRS as far as the employees and as far as the district? We could go to TRS and we could keep the employee premiums exactly what you see right there. And we could just increase the district contribution so that the employees were paying the same amount. In other words, you look at that second column there. If we did that and we went to TRS, that is the column for district that the district would be responsible for. $433, $983, $637, $1,213. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you see that the district would end up contributing actually less money because we're not paying stop loss for the employees and admin fees. Stop loss is basically insurance that you have in case you have extra claims. And we pay anywhere from $600,000 to $800,000 in stop loss or extra insurance in case we have higher claims. One benefit of moving to TRS is that you don't have to pay for that insurance. So even though we would be paying more on each plan, we would be giving them more of a district share. You look at the very bottom. For TRS, it shows that the district would be paying into the plan $1.892 million. Now, what I did is I adjusted for inflation for 2025. Every year historically, TRS has gone up on their plans about 7%. And I adjusted from 1.892 million to 2.02 million. That's how much we would be estimated paying into the plan if our employees did not have any increase to their premiums from what we have on our self-funded. So right now we're putting in 2.6 into the plan. Estimated savings to the plan is $647,000 at no additional premium cost to the employees.
Dr. Pitts?
Yes, sir.
Correct me if I'm wrong. So if we go TRS, it does seem like the benefits are less and more money for the employee to pay.
What do you mean more money for the employee to pay?
On your, I mean, it's a higher for retail generic drugs, for example.
Oh, yes. We're going to go through those one at a time and talk about, you're right, there is a trade-off, and we're going to talk about the pros and cons for doing that, but we're going to go through those charts. You are exactly right, Mr. Chapa. Okay, so again, this one is showing that, again, if we didn't increase the premiums, we're going to get to the interior of the plan. If we didn't increase the premiums, $647,000 savings to the district, again, if the district picked up the increased cost for the premiums. Now, before I go into all of the individual parts of the plan and what would change if in a year or two we went to TRS, I'm going to call up Phil Esquivel, and he's going to talk about some of the differences between a self-funded plan that we have and a fully funded plan, which would be with TRS. Mr. Esquivel?
Yeah. Hey, so if y'all don't mind, on these little brochures here, what we're talking about is there's two types of health insurance plans that are out there in the market. And there you got self-funded and you got fully funded. Fully funded, as it says here, right here, it says okay, here it is, self-funded plan. What is a self-funded health insurance plan? The most common choice of health plan for large employers is a self-funded insurance. That's because these businesses have the financial resources to cover their employees' medical claims. Okay, that's basically what they do is they handle all the small claims up to 175,000. That's what we're doing right now. Anything over 175, that's where the third party, we have the stop loss carrier to take care of us for the big bills. So we're hedging a little bit, and yes, there's a cost for that, right? And then the funds collected by the employer are paid out only when the claims occur. So the only time we expend money is when claims come in, but the revenue keeps coming in, but as the claims come in, the money goes out, right? So to prevent them from having to pay for catastrophic claims, most employers, again, invest in the stop loss insurance, and that's what we have, the stop loss insurance, which reimburses the business, or in our case, the school district, for claims that exceed a set amount. And our set amount is $175,000 per employee. And we've already had some employees that go over 175, and say it's 300,000 is the bill for the person. Well, we eat the 175, but they give us back the difference of 300,000, okay? Because we hedge ourselves against large claims. And so and usually use a third-party administrator for that. And who's our third-party administrator? Aetna, okay? And we use their network. And so with a fully funded health insurance plan, the majority of the employers with fewer than 100 employees, but it depends on what you want to go with, they choose a fully insured health plan. In this type of health insurance, we pay a fixed per member premium to a third party commercial insurance carrier. This is TRS in this case, and that covers the employee's medical claims. The premium covers administrative expenses, stop loss expenses, and employee fees. They charge us one fee across the board. And they already project what they think our claims are going to be, so they already include the claims in that premium. Premiums for the fully insured health plan typically based on the employer's size. And again, the bigger you are, the better it is. And then the self-funded, the key difference is a combination of inflation, I'm going to the next page, and rising healthcare costs isn't a positive trend for employers. Self-funded insurance offers more of a potential for cost savings than its fully insured counterpart. That is because when employees don't utilize the health plan much, the employer's costs are lowered. And that's how we have at the end of the year, for example, when was it done? This past year, what was it, 300,000?
250 or 60.
Yeah, so between last year we had a surplus of 250,000. So if you see in this little picture right here, this is a self-funded plan, and then you got the self-insured plan, and you got all the costs. But in between, you can see that you can have savings possibly. And those are the savings that we had. And that's how we end up with a reserve of, right now we got about 500,000, and God willing, at the end of this year, it still looks real good because the claims are low. We might have another 150,000 in that reserve. And so, and so it does give you an opportunity to reserve money, but like Dr. Pitt said, we're funding 2.7 million because we're basing it on 450 employees. Is that what we're paying? 479 versus with TRS, we're calculating because we know what our fixed expense is. You know what your total cost is, so he can use 306 employees. And that means there's less employees that we're having to pay towards on the TRS. And again, the TRS plan, once you get, the fully funded plans, what ends up happening is, we stay with them for 5 years. And whatever the cost is over those 5 years, we pay. And on the average, we're thinking about 7% is the increase for TRS every year. So, so that's the way that works on a self-funded and a fully insured plan. And so, like, and the thing is, yes, you know, it does, you know, numerically it's cheaper, no doubt, $647,000. But the thing is, you come down to the benefits, and that's where, you know, it wavers a little bit when you start looking at the comparisons from TRS. And we're trying to TRS. And again, like Doc said, we got to make a decision. Like, if we can stay with, you know, our self-funded plan now, and if you want to look into it, you know, in a year or 8 months, we need to give Aetna, you know, a decision, because we're going to renewal comes up pretty soon, and we're going to have to give them 8 months or a year. If y'all like the TRS plan, then, you know, then we'd have to go with the TRS plan in January.
I have a
Go
question.
ahead.
I'm confused on the, right now, till 2024, we're gonna be self-funded, insurance.
Yeah.
Okay, 2025, we're gonna be self-funded, that's what y'all are gonna recommend. And then 2026, we're looking at TRS. Now, so it's from January to December. Does TRS work from January to December? Because I know there's some, they go September to, you know, October or whatever the situation is. So in other words, when would we need to let TRS know, and like you said, Aetna know that we want to go to TRS?
Okay, I can answer that question. So for sure, we are going to be with self-funded all the way through August 31, 2025, for sure. Then we have a choice. Our choice, and again, we don't have to make that choice today. We're going to be bringing more information to you, and we're going to talk about what you have and let you study it and come back for another couple of meetings and talk about these issues. But our choice is we could go to TRS in September 1 of 2025, or we could stay with self-funded all the way through December 31 of 2025, and we could actually go to TRS has an option where they have a short year plan. So we could go to TRS in January 1 of 2026, then have a short plan to August 31 of 2026, and then start their full cycle. But you're right, at some point, one of them is going to have to be a short year, because self-funded right now, we are on a calendar year, January to December, and TRS is on a fiscal year from September to, but we have options. But you're right, and that's what the decision we need to make the most quickly within the next month or so is whether to renew with our self-funded third party for 8 months, all the way through August 31, or for 12 months through December 31 of 2025.
So we need to make that decision
probably by September, because they need time to put together our quote. And so we have at least two more meetings where we can take a look at this. But I wanted to also take a look at the next couple of slides and address what Mr. Chopper was saying, because besides premiums, there's going to be some changes to the plan too, if and when we go. And again, we're not looking anytime soon, but we are looking way ahead, because we know that there's going to be a problem that's going to be difficult to afford. Could you please blow that up a little bit more?
Hey, Doc, and we're talking about this because of the current funding and the budget crisis right now too, right?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. We would love to be able to continue to fund the plan like we can. Again, nobody can compete with our plan. Our plan is, as you can see, compared to other districts, it not only the premiums are lower for employees than any other district, the benefits are higher than any other district, but we have difficult decisions to make. The trade-off of that is basically the number of employees that we're able to continue to employ. And that's a difficult decision to make. Are those the only two factors? No, not at all. But those are the biggest factors, at least as far as budget-wise. So those are the ones that we're bringing to address. So let's take a look at right now. If we went to TRS right now, we're looking at the broad plan. I'm going to look at them one at a time. Broad plan, our individual deductible is $1,250. Our proposed for next year is $1,500. TRS is $1,200. So if TRS is actually, they're probably going to go up for next year, like they usually do. But we're not off from TRS as far as that's concerned. The family, we actually have a higher deductible than what TRS would for the family. So that actually would be a benefit for our employees going to TRS there. Same thing, look at maximum out of pocket. We're very, very close to what TRS is for maximum out of pocket there, for both individual and family. So it wouldn't affect them there, but here's where it starts to affect it. You look at, first of all, primary physician office visit. TRS actually has a lower copay, $15. But here's some differences. We have a $40 specialty. We're proposing going up $45 next year to get a little closer to TRS, but TRS charges $70. So again, if and when we went there, that would be a cost to employees. Again, you look up at the top of the plan, it looks really good. It looks like the employees would be doing pretty good as far as those first couple of rows. You go to preventative care, we're good. We have a CVS Minute Clinic. They do not. Keep going. Okay, stop, right, up a little bit higher. Okay, one more. Okay, perfect. Okay, so diagnostic, we weren't able to find a comparable amount on TRS. Some of those you see on TRS are blank. That's just because we weren't able to find any data yet. You look at labs. Labs, we have 100% that we have covered at Quest. This was the first year we've done that. We haven't done that before because we want our employees to get their diagnostics. That's why we decided to do that. With TRS, it's also $0 at the doctor, but it's hard to find a doctor in Kingsville that does all those diagnostics. Otherwise, it's $20 after 20% after if it's outpatient. Again, that's a potential one that would be a bigger cost for our employees. The next two, we weren't able to find a comparable TRS comparison. Urgent care, you see that we're 30, we're proposing 35 for next year. That's to get a little bit of a difference between $20 for doctor's visit and 35 for urgent. We want to drive them to their primary care physician first, but 35 is still really low that they won't go to the hospital instead of doing that for urgent care. But you see that TRS is $50, so they would go up a little bit there. Emergency room, right now you see we're 30% after 250 copay, but we're trying to drive them away from the emergency room. So we're proposing going up to 30% after 350 copay. But again, if they are admitted, it's waived. So in other words, if it actually is an emergency that they really have to be there and it's that important, then we're waiving that. But if it's something that they didn't have to go to the emergency room, then they have to pay a $350 copay. TRS has a $500 copay. And then we're just going to scroll down and go to the generic. If you notice, for TRS, they pay $15 for generic. We're at $5. So that would be an additional cost to employees. Retail preferred brands. So we're proposing going from 20 to 25%. Reason why is we want to drive employees to generic. But there's preferred brands where we get better rebates from, and there are non-preferred brands that we get less rebates from. So before, in the past, you see that we had 20% for both of those, but if an employee is gonna choose to do a brand, we want them to go to a preferred, so you see, we're trying to differentiate next year on that. You see that for, TRS, again, they have basically, they have a co-insurance, but they also have a max. If you go down to mail order, same thing. Typically, mail order for 90 days is 3 times whatever you have for the 1 month generic, because it's a 90-day supply. So you see ours is 3 times 15 is 3 times 5, and theirs 45 is 3 times 15. And then you see also we're going to try to differentiate and go up to 35% for non-preferred for next year. One other big change is they charge for insulin and diabetic supplies. We have encouraged our employees to get that, so that's why we've done 0% there. If you finally look at the bottom, and I'm not going to go to the other 2 pages, I'm going to give you guys a chance to study those over the next 2 weeks before we come back to our next meeting, because I don't want to go through, again, I'm just explaining on one particular document. If you look at the bottom there, the bottom shows what the broad plan was last year for our employees. It shows what the proposal is for next year for, again, our self-funded, shows the increase right there. And then it shows if we went to TRS in 2025, I projected in the 7% increase for TRS, and we still paid $479 what each of our employees would pay on TRS. Now, the difference between that and the other, if we actually did that, again, we would save well over $1 million if we went up to those premiums for employees, but we're not proposing that whatsoever. We would be proposing, if we went to TRS, to keep the premiums the same, and that's what drops the savings down to only $647,000 going to TRS, because we're not looking at making all of our premiums go up if we go to TRS to those with only a $479 contribution from the district. The district would be contributing more so that our employees would be able to keep their premiums the same. I won't go over the other 2, but I'll answer any questions that you guys have on what we've covered.
As we're moving on with this and discussing the different options, is this being shared with any of the campuses or anybody right now?
It is not shared with the campuses right now. We're trying to get board feedback first before we do that.
Because right now they might be watching, so.
They might be, true.
Well, yeah, so that's what I'm saying,
Well, I can assure employees that are watching that we are preparing for the future. Nothing's going to change immediately. These are very preliminary discussions. Again, the first thing that would possibly change would be in January of 2025, which we wouldn't go to TRS, but we're not even considering that, but we are proposing very modest changes in premiums that are seen right there, moving into 2025. But again, we're still in the preliminary talks right now, so we don't want to really spread that information to the campuses till we have something set in stone. We will do that as soon as we have in September, and because open enrollment is probably in November, where we start preparing for January. But as soon as we decide something in September, when, like, are we planning to stay for a full year or 8 months? Then we'll try to start getting some information out to the campuses within a month, once the board's solid on what direction you are choosing to do, what you want to do. Then we'll start disseminating information to the campuses. But again, we don't have open enrollment till November. Nothing will change until January 1 of 2025.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Yes, I do have a question.
Absolutely.
I was just comparing the different plans that they were in. And so on the narrow plan,
Okay.
on the first column, last year it had the different hospitals. So for 2025,
Oh, well, I'm sorry, it's the same hospitals. I just didn't put it on that column, but it's the
so
same
that means that they can only go to those hospitals. They can't go to Kingsville.
That's correct, and that's how the narrow plan has been for the last several years that we offered it. The reason why it's cheaper to those employees, because those hospitals have the biggest discounts. So employees can choose a broad plan that has a larger network, but again, there is a cost to that. But again, nothing has changed for that from the previous years. Those have been the hospitals that have been in the narrow network before. Other questions?
So in case of an emergency, they need to be, like, go by ambulance to be, say for instance, they selected that plan, that's where they need to be first. Yes.
But if it's an actual emergency, if it is an actual emergency, then they're not billed. But if they're gonna go there just for, I don't know, they have a cut on their finger or something like that, then they're gonna be charged, because otherwise they need to go to their, but
It's
no,
like
every
already,
hospital.
but Mr. Escobar will be fine.
Or a planned surgery. Or a planned surgery.
Planned surgery or
Yeah.
life threatening?
Yeah, life threatening, I mean, if it's a planned surgery, you need to go to the network. If it's an emergency, you know, the life threatening, they can go anywhere they want and help out. So,
Thank you.
hey, and I just want to remind you all that, you know, again, we're coming up, we're trying to look for what, 155,000 in premium? And that, an extra 155,000 in premium to help fund the plan. Okay, I mean, so I'm just letting y'all know, that's the number, that's our number we're coming up with. So that's the, so, I mean, again, we got 600,000, about 600,000 in reserves too. So I'm just trying to let y'all know, okay? All right, thank you, Doctor.
Was that David on the phone?
That was David, he reconnected.
Oh.
Dr. Vince. Dr. Vince.
Go ahead, Mr. Garcia.
Do our employees still have access to a teledoc service?
Absolutely, and that would be something that we would plan to continue even if we eventually decided in a year or two switching plans, because it is a minimal cost to the district. We're talking maybe $30,000 to $40,000 for the district. I mean, I guess that's not minimal, but right now we have that for all employees and their dependents, whether they have insurance with the district or not. And it's something that we really need to push. We were talking about this with Mr. Esquivel today, Ms. Gallino and myself. We were talking about how that's good for the employees and that's good for the district, because the employee doesn't have to wait for a doctor's appointment. The employee doesn't have to have a super large, they don't have any type of copay. They get what they need right away, and then the district doesn't pay anything either, other than the initial outlay. So that really, we need to have a know where to go campaign. The first thing should always be, can I go to telemedicine? Second thing should be, can I go to my primary care? That's gonna save me money, that's gonna save the district money. Third should be, okay, can I go into urgent care? And then the last resort should be, do I need to go do an emergency room or a hospital? And really that's all about education. And you're right, Mr. Garcia, that is still gonna be available no matter what we do, because the more employees, I think some of our employees are just still a little bit afraid of the online experience, and that's something that we need to just do some more education about. But that's something that they don't even have to go to the doctor to get a prescription. And it will be of no cost to them or their dependents. So that is a very good point, and we need to continue that in my estimation. Mr. Esquivel, what are your thoughts on that?
No doubt, we need to keep the teledoc, because that's the first line of defense for all the teachers and for their children, rather than, you know, at least they get to get the doctor for their child in the evening to get the prescription. Maybe the kid's feeling better by the next day. Guess what? She gets to go to work. We don't gotta call it a substitute, you know, and I think that teledoc is very effective if we use it the right way. And so, yeah.
Urgent care, maybe still go like
Yeah.
Castaneda?
Well, we do, but Castaneda is actually included in some primary care. That's how their bills, they actually have less of a copay when they go to Castilla than they would even in an urgent care. That care and access are classified as urgent care, so both of those two.
Thank you, Dr. Nitz.
You're welcome. Any other questions on health insurance? Again, the next couple of meetings, we will bring this back for further discussions. Again, now that you have the data in front of you, then you can prepare your questions. I encourage, if you have any questions ahead of time, send them to me, and I will work on getting the answers before we meet next time.
And we'll update those empty blanks in there that were the inpatient for TRS. We'll make sure we get those filled in so you can get the true comparison, inpatient, outpatient. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. We move now to item number 6D, LED lighting. This can be found on page 27 to 28 of our packet, Dr. Pitts.
Thank you, Mr. Kufal. So I'm going to give a short introduction, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Sandoval, who's going to talk about the current state of our lighting in the district. So this is something that we've been approached for years for LED lighting, and different vendors will tell you you can save money by going to LED lighting, and we'll help you, and we'll do it all for you. And there's a catch to that, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But I've been approached for years for that, and they are right. There is an amount you can save, but when they do that, they're like, we're going to come in, we're not going to charge you anything, and what they're going to do is they're going to put you on a 15 or 20-year plan where everything that you would save over that period of time, they're going to charge you for it, and every year you don't have any initial outlay at the beginning, but every year they say that the amount that you're going to save, you have to pay them back every year. And last year we did something like this for HVAC, and we just finished a year or two ago. We paid them $175,000 every year for 15 years. But again, that was way back about 17 years ago that we did that project for an HVAC. So the advantage of any of those plans is that you don't have to put up any money up front. The disadvantage is you have to pay back over several years, and you don't get to see the amount that you would save on the decreased electricity costs. They get all of those savings. They get all of those rebates to the plan. So that is, as we're looking at any different way, what can we do to balance the budget? We're looking at many different ways to do that, and this is one that we have identified, so that's why we contracted. If we were to do it on our own, we contracted a vendor to do a lighting audit at a very modest cost. It's eventually, he inspected every single light in the district, and was there for every meeting that we had, but took several weeks to do, and again, it will come out to about $6,000, I believe. But this is what it would save us if we did it on our own. By on our own, we would buy all the lights on our own. We would either do the work by ourselves, or if we are not able to employ an electrician on our staff, we would do it under the supervision of another electrician. And as you see, the cost right here, estimated at $229,000 after rebates, but we again believe that the bids, once they bid, right now it's at about not $11 a lamp. We think that we're going to be able to get $6 to $8 a lamp if we go out for bids, because we are doing it in volume. And we believe that the cost for the labor will be quite a bit less too. We are just budgeting in what could possibly be the maximum that it would cost. And you see that then, even if it was at maximum, we would save $60,000 in energy cost alone every year. And again, it would take 3.7 years to pay off instead of the 15 to 20 years if you go with the company. The other thing is that is just an electricity cost. The other thing that you have to do, that you have to realize, if, I'll let Dr. Sandoval talk about this, but there's a difference that if you go to LED lights, you don't need to replace the ballast and you don't need to replace the bulbs as often, so you save on those amounts as well. So let me turn it over to Dr. Sandoval where you can talk about the benefits.
Thank you, Dr. Pitts, board trustees, Mr. Kufal, Dr. Perez. I just wanted to speak a little bit more to the question that was asked last week in regards to do we have a lighting issue here in the district? And when you look at the number of work orders that we've received over just the 2024 year, not even counting last fall, we had 87 work orders that pertain to lighting. And the work orders that we dealt with were replacing bulbs, were replacing ballasts, having to replace actual units. But the majority of them were the issues with the ballast going out. It starts to make that humming sound when that ballast is about to go out. We have to do, 87 work orders just the year 2024, and it's going to continue to increase if we don't do anything to replace them. So is our lighting good? I mean, yes, we have lighting in all the buildings, but can we do a better job of having a better system that's going to be cost efficient? And what Dr. Pitts is bringing to the board is just a plan that's going to be able to save us in the future. Yes, it's going to be some money up front, $230,000 we're projecting in terms of cost, but when you look at the overall savings that we'll have in the 10-year period, it definitely pays for itself and then some. So we're excited about this presentation, and hopefully the board sees that the benefits of moving into LED lighting. We have done some retrofits in Gillette hallway, Gillette cafeteria, and I think the band hall and the choir room there, Gillette, is definitely made a difference in terms of the lighting. We are looking at least 2 more classrooms right now that are going to need retrofitting. That's going to be the automotive body shop classroom, and then our aviation mechanics classroom is going to need some lighting. So if we contract that out, it's definitely going to cost us between $15,000 and $30,000 depending on the vendors that we go with, which site we go with. So it's definitely something that we as a district, as an administrative team, feel is going to benefit the district, benefit the school. On top of the things that I've already said, there'll be less work orders that we'll have to do moving forward because those LEDs do last a lot longer than our bulbs, so we won't have to be sending our crews to constantly be replacing the bulbs or your fluorescent tubes or your ballasts that are currently having to be replaced on any given day or any given week. So we definitely want to share the information with you because it's vital information. That's the 87 work orders. I did pull that from our work order system that we currently use in the district. So that's accurate, vital information.
Quick question. Dr. Pitts said that our staff would do the work. Is that true? Do we have the manpower?
We do have a current electrician that is half-time, and we would need to hire another electrician to do it. We save a lot more money than we contracted it out. We can pay an electrician between $35 to $55 an hour versus paying a contracted electrician about $100 an hour.
But you're gonna need other individuals also, but what about the other work
We
orders?
believe we can do it with the 1.5 electricians. We can knock it out within a year because we can use, if we have an electrician, we can get an additional helper to help out at a given time when need be, depending on the project that's getting done at the time. But we definitely have the equipment now. We purchased scissor lifts and man lifts that can help us do the repairs in the district when needed, so we won't have to rent any equipment. Any questions?
So I'd like to add, Dr. Sandoval had talked about, right now, we have had a couple of major, just to the age of the fixtures, we've had a couple of systems that have gone out, and when we have replaced it, we've replaced it with LED lighting, because we know that in the future, moving forward, that is going to be a cost reduction, and it's going to be less labor. But instead of replacing every little bit when it goes out with LED lighting, we save if we buy lamps in volume. There's a huge discount by doing that. We also save in labor if we do that all at one time as well too. So instead of continually, whenever something breaks, fix it, there's about every LED light on average lasts about 2 times as long as either a fluorescent or incandescent light. So not only that, they don't have a ballast, so you don't have to replace that when it goes out as well too. So there is economy of scale that if you do everything up front and at the same time, and again, if you have people working on the project till completion, you're not gonna have to bring people out, then send them back. You're gonna have significant savings if it is all done together. So again, that's why we're bringing it to the board. Any other questions that you have on this?
Dr. Fitz, this is a discussion, right? Are we taking a vote on this tonight?
No, we're not taking any vote on this tonight. This is still in the preliminary stages. So there's no reason to make a decision on this tonight at all. So we'll keep bringing back in the next meeting or two until the board decides either yes to move ahead or no, we don't want to entertain that for this next budget year. But we'll continue to bring it back. And if you have any other questions, we'll let you think about it and formulate your questions and bring it to us, and we'll have it again as a discussion item next board meeting.
This kind of goes on the project wish list, if I recall, kind of like we did this last year with the track and the parking lot and some of the others, and some of them we get to and some of them we don't.
Yeah, that's correct, and we have it just in case we get to it if the board, and the other option we have is we can look and see how that HMK Foundation repair is going. If we have extra money from that, that's something that we can also use for this as well. But again, we wouldn't move forward with this unless the board feels comfortable with it. We're presenting it to you as an option for future cost savings, but again, there is an initial investment. And the other thing is a lot of this work, I'll let Dr. Sandoval speak more to it of how much of it can be done when the building is occupied and how much of it needs to be done, for instance, after hours or on a weekend or during a break or in the summer.
Thank you, Dr. Pitts. We're gonna go and look at how that's gonna best benefit our schools and our students to not interfere with instruction. So we'll definitely put a plan together to make sure that it doesn't get in the way of students, teachers, and we'll do things during the day that we can do that allows, whether it be hallways or, cafeterias that are being occupied during the time. But we'll definitely use those half-day Fridays to knock out projects in the classroom, things of that sort, because we're thinking it's gonna take approximately about 15 minutes per fixture. So we can knock out about 4 per hour. So it all depends on when we are able to get this going to make sure that we're able to be most efficient in terms of completing the project in a timely manner.
Or is the plan to remove the ballast, or you're going to put the LED light inside the existing ballast?
We are looking to use the existing fixtures, and we're just gonna retrofit them to work with new LED lighting. If we have old fixtures that are no longer sufficient, we might have to replace those, but I think we should be able to, based off the audit that was made, it was using the current fixtures that are in place at this time.
Out of the hundreds of calls that I've received, it's never been a complaint about lights. Okay, so I'm not saying that we don't need them, but I also want to go back to what Brian said, that it's a wish list that we had a couple of years ago, even last year. That was not even mentioned, so we're going to take that into consideration as well.
Sir. Yes, sir, we got that.
All right, any further questions from the board? If not, thank you all. We'll move on to 6E. property values and tax. This can be found on page 29 of our packet.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kufal. I'm just going to speak briefly to this item. We've discussed some of these issues before, but this is an indicator in our financial rating that I have to have this as a listed agenda item on a board meeting in order to get our 5 points for that first rating. Speaking of that, our preliminary first rating is a 92%. But again, that's based on data from a year ago. So we did have a very healthy fund balance at over $14 million. And again, we're going to have a very good financial rating when they become official sometime in November or December. But on that financial rating, I do have to talk a little bit, have this as an agenda item. So basically, property values are calculated two different ways. They are appraised by the county appraisal district, and they are also appraised by the state comptroller. And the way that taxes are collected are based on the county appraisal scores. But the way that we're funded is based on the state comptroller. And the reason why we've lost over $1 million every year is because of the difference of the two. We also are going by current values, and we don't even get the appraisal district. They just came out with their values on July the 25th. We don't even get the preliminary comptroller values till February of 2025. Then after that, then we have to, since they're so different, we have to go through the process where we contract an attorney to go ahead and find a healthy meeting point somewhere in the middle. And that usually takes, again, several months, and it doesn't get worked out till probably September or October of the next budget year. So it's a complex process where projecting revenues is difficult in any district, but in our district, it has been especially difficult because we know that even though we get the values from the appraisal district, we know that next February, the comptroller is going to come out with values, and that's what our revenues are based on, not what the appraisal district does. So we have to project what the comptroller is going to come out, and then project what the settlement's going to be after the attorney does that as well. So it's not a shot in the dark because we've gotten better at projecting what we think the end result is going to be, but it's definitely an estimate at the very least. Now, as far as taxes are concerned, again, taxes are based on what the appraisal district approves. This year, we're looking at keeping the tax rate the same at 1.4104. So the only increase to any homeowner would be if their property values increase. And again, we're looking at moving those extra pennies to the INS side. We're going to do the defeasance at the very next item. This will allow us to next year, instead of just paying about a little over $3.5 million, we will pay off about $9.7 million of our debt. And again, $2.1 million of those dollars are dollars that basically we're going to get for paying it off early, that we don't have to put anything in just because we're paying it off early. $2.1 extra million is going to be decreased from our debt. I'll take any questions that you have on property values and taxes.
I do have one.
Yes, sir.
All right, INS and the others, what?
M&O.
All right. If, this kind of is a discussion for later, but just so I get this straight in my head. Suppose we chose not to do a defeasance, and suppose we reduced the INS portion of the tax rate. We could not offset that on the M&O side, could we?
We could not without a tax ratification election. So it's one way you can increase your INS either if you pay your existing debt, or actually if you do a defeasance to pay out some of your debt early, but you cannot increase the M&O. They have a maximum compressed rate. which for us is 0.6169. And then we have extra pennies that are added on top of that. We have 13.83 extra pennies. We can go up to 17 extra pennies, but to increase those extra pennies, we would have to go before the public, and we would have to have a tax ratification election.
All right, any other questions regarding property values and tax? If not, thank you, Dr. Pitts. We move on to item number 7, which is new business. Item 7A, by common consent, the board agrees to consider as one action item the following, which can be found on page 30 to 41. Approval of a waiver of tuition for transfer students for 2024-2025 school year, and approval of T-test appraisers for the 2024-2025 school year. Do I have a motion that we approve these by common consent? Motion made by Mr. Chapa.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Ruiz. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Garcia, are you still with us?
Still here, I said aye.
Thank you, sir. Motion carries 7-0. Item 7B, discussion and possible action regarding employee retention pay. This can be found on page 42. Dr. Pitts.
Thank you, Mr. Kufal. If you could scroll up, please. Okay, perfect. That's great. So we had initial discussions with the board about a $300 retention payment to all full-time employees that would be as of November the 13th. The reason we pay on the 15th, but again, we need to submit the file to the bank 2 days ahead of time. So that would be the criteria would be that they are a full-time employee on November the 13th. Do you have any questions for me?
I agree.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, it's not a question, it's just a recommendation. And I know that at the last board meeting, we did discuss $300. And I really feel that, maybe some of these other items can be put on the back burner and to kind of help employees. I know the increase in insurance is going to be kind of minimal, but for some it is substantial. That maybe I recommend we move it to 500.
I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to increase the retention stipend from 300 to 500 per employee.
Motion made by Ms. Salinas that we approve a $500 retention payment to all current full-time employees as of November 13th, 2024. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Morales. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Garcia was
Aye.
all right. I vote no. Motion carries 6-1.
I just want to get some legal clarification on this. The amount that we put in the budget was less, so this would cause an increase in budget. We've already put something in motion for the paper. Can the board approve a budget that is bigger than what was put in the paper? Or do I need to go back and try to then take away from other places to counteract this?
So we'd have to reallocate amongst the buckets if you don't stick with the budget as opposed to approved by the board. If we require a budget amendment, then we would have to go renotice and enable the budget for that. But if we can reallocate, then that's ordinarily what districts do first.
Thank you.
All right, we move now to item 7C, discussion and possible action regarding resolution authorizing the defeasance of certain portions of the district's current outstanding obligations and other matters related thereto. This can be found on page 43 to 47 of our packet. Dr. Pitts.
Thank you, Mr. Kufal. So we did the defeasance last year, and the defeasance for last year just happened in July of 2024. The reason why we elected to delay the defeasance as late as possible, it has to be within the current budget year, so it has to be before August 31st, is because interest rates are so high right now. So right now, it's actually to our benefit to delay the defeasance. Interest rates are actually higher than what we're paying on our bonds. So it's to our best interest to hold off as long as possible to pay off the defeasance. By doing this, again, the board approves the defeasance, and when it is determined that is the opportune time with to do the defeasance, then we are allowed to pull the trigger with the board's approval. Again, by doing this, we're going to be, instead of paying off $3.6 million of our debt this year, we're going to pay off $9.7 million of our debt this year. And because of that, taxpayers are going to save over $2.1 million in interest over the next 10 years. I'll take any questions that you have.
Schedule 1 shows the proposed bonds to be defeased.
Yes.
So really, the break even would be anytime the money to be used to repay these defeased bonds is earning less than 4.5, then you're actually ahead.
Yes, sir. Right. And right now we're well over 5.
All right. Who pulls that trigger? You?
That's something that there are 3 people normally that they have on that defeasance. Normally that would be you, number 1, Dr. Pettis, number 2, and me, number 3, but we would never go forward with that without really all 3 of us being on the same page.
And is for example, Tia Rena or anybody involved in any of that?
Absolutely,
okay.
They are, for sure.
All right. Any other questions, Dr. Pitts? You've heard the recommendation that the board approve the defeasance to happen at an opportune time down the road. Is there a motion to approve? Motion made by Mr. Garcia.
I'll second.
Seconded by Ms. Salinas. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries 7-0. We move now to item D, discussion and possible action regarding the 2024-2025 adaptive education and early childhood special education stipends. This can be found on page 48 of our packet. Dr. Pitts.
And Dr. Holt.
Okay.
Dr. Holt wasn't able to be here tonight, but Dr. Pitts is.
We collaborated, and we also collaborated with special education. So right now we have 5 vacancies that are either adaptive education or behavior right now. Early childhood right now. And it has been very difficult to fill those positions. So we are proposing to the board that we increase the stipend. On the stipend schedule, it was $4,000. We're proposing to increase it to $6,000. And then also for the 24-25 year only, since we are in such dire circumstances, to have an additional $500 either sign-in bonus for new employees to the district, or with our current employees, we don't want to shortchange them at all. It wouldn't be called a sign-in bonus, but it would be a separate one-time $500 stipend besides the $6,000, so that both of them essentially would be getting $6,500 for the 24-25 year. I'll entertain any questions you have.
So the regular special ed teachers are getting 4,000. These individuals would get the 6,000.
So special education teachers are on tiers. So for depending on the need. So the inclusion teachers are paid $2,000 per year. That's the one where they have to have the least certification, and it's really the least demanding position. Then the $3,000 is per our behavioral classes. Again, they still don't have. See, the reason why the adaptive ed in the early childhood is so hard to get them, one of the reasons is because they need to be certified in all 4 core areas as long as special education. So we're currently, those are the ones that are 4,000, and we still haven't been able to get quality employees at that. So those are the employees that we're proposing moving to 6,000, and then with the extra $500 for this 24-25 year.
Forward, that would stay at 6,000 for them?
Uh,
Or
that,
is it just this one school year?
that's something where we would need to entertain next year. It would really depend on the need, but every year the board approves the stipend list anyway at the beginning of the year. So if that still is a very high need, I don't know if Dr. Bessanias can speak to that, but I don't see it as anything that's gonna be easier to fill next year.
And you know, I don't have a problem giving them whatever amount they need. But in order to retain these employees, are we providing the appropriate support to them? Training and everything that they need? Because we can hire teachers left and right, but they're gonna leave us.
Yes, ma'am, I can answer that question. I think one of the things we've definitely seen is a high number of students that we have within KISD and many coming. So one campus, for example, has a total of 21 AE students. So we have a classroom of 10 and a classroom of 11. So that's a very high number for just one campus, but that's where that community of students live, and that's where they are going. But as far as the support, we do have the paraprofessional support. We've had training for them. The service center comes in, we do training, provide them continual support. We just have a large population of these identified students.
If these employees are being provided
Yes, ma'am.
continuously, so,
Yes.
you know, because I know some of these kids their needs are great,
Yes, they are.
you know, and
We have some that
I
have
mean,
to
I
have
totally
specialized
am all for the
feeding.
one-to-one,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
that's what they need.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that
Mhm.
ultimately we're here for the kids.
Yes, ma'am.
So to keep them safe and to educate them to the best we can do.
That's why we're bringing
And
this,
to
is because we
protect
feel
the
that they
employees
need
as
it.
well.
Yes,
I mean, do they know what to do in case of choking or whatever?
yes. We go through all of that training.
I'm
and
just
we have-
afraid of all that.
Yeah, it's very sensitive, but we are very good about it. The training is there for all of our teachers.
And those two positions are very high, I mean, it's a demanding position. Not every special ed teacher. Yeah, they aren't out there, but let's hope maybe this might entice them to come for us, but.
And I like what Nelma said as far as the continues. They're gonna need a lot more support, and you take it by the need, as you said.
Yes.
So, the bottom line is being there, like you said, we can be, and we are, and to continually be in the classroom, not in the way, but just assisting, them and let them know that they are being supported not only by campus, but us, or this administration. And that means a lot to someone when they're coming in, just to be, is everything okay, how can I help you? In other districts, when I was in Fort Worth, they actually have, central office administrators actually going in their schedule to go in there for a half day or a full day, just to assist. And they have this big schedule, I've seen them. And then it's, for example, Maddox might go in there for half a day, so-and-so go in there for the other half, just to show that assistance and support.
That is a good idea, sir. Thank you for sharing that. I think secondly, the more we train them, the more feedback we do get from the teachers that have been here a long time and still love that setting. So they do love the support, but they also are enjoying having different types of training with their other colleagues. And Ms. Zimmerman and I have talked about doing some extra things for them that's above and beyond, so they feel appreciated. They do get that time to, and I think the calendar has really helped. One teacher that I was speaking to at the high school said this new calendar really has helped her have those 4 days and then the second day just to prepare for the home.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to add one, sorry, go ahead.
Are we trying to approve to give those 5 vacancies, whoever we hire, an additional $2,000 plus a $500 signing bonus? Is that what I understand?
Correct. The current people that we have in the
Yes.
adaptive ed and early childhood special education would also benefit from this.
Same amount.
In addition to the new ones.
It wouldn't be called a sign-on bonus, it'd be called a stipend, but it's basically same amount. The other thing that we're hoping to do by increasing this is.
No, everybody who's adaptive ed and early childhood special ed. Right.
Even if they're not here.
Right, but that's what we're trying to show our current employees that are in these positions, our appreciation and support that way.
Okay, Dr. Pettis, so the ones that are already there, the ones that are already employed with us, they got the stipend of 4,000, is that what it was?
Oh, yes, they already got, well, that's part of their regular.
Well, I mean, that's what's coming, right? That's what already been approved.
Yes, well, yes, but then
Okay,
we're
so now,
asking for the additional.
Okay, on top of the 4,000, we want to give them a stipend of retention, whatever you want to call it, $500, right?
The 500 is separate, it's an additional, it's a one-time $500 stipend.
It's an additional, yes.
It's the
Okay, so then the ones that we're trying to attract to get them into our district, we're gonna give them $6,000 plus the 5, is that correct?
Correct, it will be equal to the amount that our current employees will be getting, is the 6,000 plus the 500.
What about the teacher assistants? Can we give them any type of incentive? I mean, because they're the ones in the as well.
Well, teacher, we can't give them stipends, they're hourly employees, and the reason why hourly employees can't get a stipend is because we can say, here's $1,000 and you can do as many hours as you want with that. They always have to get hourly pay. The special education aides are paid at a higher pay scale than regular general education aides. Every year we compare them with market value for what the other people in their position are making, so we have looked at that.
Dr. Pitts, on that hourly, I don't know if we have coaches on an hourly pay this year. Do they just get hourly and no stipend as far as coaches are concerned? Because they're hourly also.
Right, if we have any coaches that are hourly, we also have to pay their coaching hourly as well too. They do not get the stipend, they have to get paid an hourly rate. Well, we make sure that it does not exceed the stipend because that's the maximum amount that the board approves. The other thing that we're hoping.
So our employees that are already there that's stuck with us, because we need to get them to recruit them or attract them who's going to get sick. Can we give the ones that have said, hey, I'm here, I did not go anywhere, could we give them the other $2,000 plus the 5?
We are, yes, we are, sir.
Yes, we're proposing the same, both for current employees and for new employees, Mr. Garcia.
Perfect, yes, perfect, it's good, yeah.
The other thing that we're hoping is that we have inclusion teachers that aren't certified to be AE or early education. It's quite a big bump if they get certified. If we have current employees that are inclusion and they want to get certified and work in those high need positions, we're hoping that this will entice them to do it because it is quite a bit more of a stipend if they can get that certification and will fill those high need positions.
All right, board, you've heard the recommendation by administration. Is there a move to approve the funding as outlined in the proposal?
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Pettis,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Morales. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Garcia?
He froze, he hit a low signal area.
Aye.
Might be coming back.
There he is.
Mr. Garcia, there's been a motion made and approved to this finish. Are you in favor?
Well, you can't see.
Aye. Motion carries 7-3. Item E.
Yeah, good, can you hear me?
We can now. You approved that,
Okay.
correct?
Yeah, sorry about that. I have dead spot or something.
That's all right. Item E, discussion possible action regarding the revised KISD instructional calendar 2024-2025 school year. Student balance 49.
Stop that thing.
To our 2024-25 calendar. It's one slight revision. We don't have access to the spec at the university on the proposed date that we have on our calendar, which was the 24th of May, 2025. The date that we do have available for our graduation is gonna be May the 22nd, 2025. So we'll have graduation on that last day of school and that evening. It shouldn't interfere with anything we do with graduation or any graduation rehearsals or the breakfast we do for seniors. So we'll be able to do that during the last day versus, which is usually the next day when we graduate. So it'll be a slight change, but it should not affect anything we do in regards to graduation. So that is our proposal this time.
Okay, I'm blind, but when I look at, it says May 25, the 22nd is on a Thursday.
That's correct, Mr. Cooper.
We will have graduation on Thursday, May the 22nd.
Correct.
All right. You've heard the proposal and the request for revision to the calendar. Is there a motion to approve? Motion made by Mr. Salinas.
Second.
Seconded by everyone. Mr. Chapa. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries 7-0. All right. The board will now enter into closed session in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551.071 and 551.074 to deliberate and consider the following. A, consider and deliberate regarding the employment of contracted personnel, Gillette Assistant Principal, and B, consultation with legal counsel regarding legal and personnel matters. No action will be taken until we return to open session. We are entering closed session at 8:16 p.m.
I was messing around looking online.
Yes, I need to make sure that's. Oh, We now return to open session to take necessary action on matters which the board may discuss in open session upon which action may be taken. We are returning to open session at 9:11 p.m. Item A, discussion and possible action regarding the employment of contracted personnel, Gillette Assistant Principal. Dr. Pettis.
Administration recommends that the Board of Trustees approve the following contracted employee presented for Gillette Assistant Principal, Ms. Kelly.
All right, you've heard the recommendations. There a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Pettis,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Salinas. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Let the record reflect that Mr. Garcia participated in closed session but had to leave before we return to open session. There being no further items to come before this board, I declare this meeting adjourned at 9:11 p.m.